Wax Graphene Flex Wax. I've been using this on this vehicle right here. It's a 2012 CTSV with 43,000 miles on it now. Yes, I know that's low. This car's pretty much been garage kept its whole life. I got it in January, and it's an Arizona vehicle, so it's in really good shape. Garage kept, like I said. You can tell by the headlights they are not faded at all, so you know that this thing's been in the garage. Immediately after purchase, I did the whole 9 yards exterior detail on this, iron decontamination, including clay barring, not just that purple stuff, but the clay bar, polish, which was okay. The rubbing compound that Turtle Wax gives you it's okay. They say it's a one and done compound, and the types of pads you use will dictate the cutting power of the compound. And basically what they mean by that is the compound itself is it's a lubricant for the pad on the paint, and that's kind of how they are able to say that. The compound, in my experience, was okay. I think I may have said that in my first video of my initial impressions. It was just okay. It didn't cut great, but it was good for getting swirl marks out and some other minor imperfections. But if you had any kind of real scratches, you'd be sitting over that one spot and going over multiple times to try to get it out, which is okay, especially if you're new, especially at working with a dual action polisher. Then you will definitely, it'll be easier for you to learn on. You're not going to make those kind of mistakes. The paint looked perfect, of course. The paint still looks really, really good right now. And again, I have washed this thing for about 6 times now. I have some videos up where all I'm doing, I'm not talking, I'm just spraying it down. And I did learn that having a good thumbnail really dictates whether or not people click on your video, because I've got one that has a crap thumbnail and nobody's really clicked on it, even though it's basically my latest update. I will say that the dust repellency, I guess, dust attractant, I don't really know exactly what the word is here, but the characteristics of this and preventing dust from sticking to it, no. I'd give this probably 1 star. If I was going to do a 5-star scale, I'd give this 1 star for dust resistance, because it's very, very bad. It's very bad at keeping dust off of the vehicle. Just a couple of drives out and about, and you will be able to see, especially from where I sit here, the way I look over this hood, you can see just a thin film of just dust all the way across it. It looks clean, right? But if I get in the vehicle and look at it and the sun hits it, it's just absolutely coated with dust. The finish is not as slick as it was before. Again, I've washed this about 6 times now, so it's washed as needed. It's been about 7 months since I put this stuff on here, and the finish is definitely not nearly as slick as it was initially. This stuff, I think, is less slick than the liquid stuff, the liquid wax version of this, but the liquid wax is no good. If you guys watch Scott H's videos, you will see that it fails within the first month. It is just not a good wax to use. This is far and away superior to the liquid wax. You'll get high gloss numbers, you'll get slickness out of the liquid wax, but this is going to actually repel water longer than the liquid wax will. So that's one thing to consider. If you're buying the kit, I feel like Turtle Wax just threw that liquid wax in there just to say that, oh, look at all this stuff you get, when really it's just not. It's a crappy wax. I would not recommend it to anybody. This stuff is basically the staple of the bucket that I got. The compound, like I said, was okay. but this is what you're buying when you're buying that kit. So my thoughts on it. Again, it's been about 7 months. I've washed it about 5-6 times now. The hydrophobic properties of this wax. Again, this car sits in this garage all the time. It gets virtually no outdoor elements thrown at it on a daily basis. Okay, so it sees an occasional road trip, it sees occasional weekend use, and that's about it. I don't work, I don't drive to work, I work from home, and I don't drive this very much. So it just sits in here most of the time. And after about the 5th or 6th wash, I noticed, especially down here on these panels, down here, you know, where the wheel is kicking up a lot of this dirt. First of all, like I said, dust resistance is not good. So any kind of remotely dusty road that you're driving on, it will leave a thin film of dust back there. So the hydrophobic properties started to diminish from about here down, and it's just sheeting off pretty aggressively now. The other thing too is the mirrors. So the mirrors get they get bug guts on them. You know, this thing is not a slow vehicle by any means. So when you're hitting bug guts doing triple digits in the middle of summer, it's going to be really hard to get them off afterwards. Even with a good foam wash, I really try really hard to have a good car washing regimen. I got the 2 buckets. I do the wheels first, you know, before I wet the rest of the car. I foam down the car, rinse it off, and then I will foam it again and manually agitate. Even with all of that, there is some manual agitation that has to be done a little bit more on the mirrors and the front end of the vehicle. Now, the mirrors specifically may be a little bit softer as far as the paint goes, because it's a softer plastic component on the vehicle anyways, so the paint and clear coat may be applied differently. It may be a different you know, chemical compound. Just the way that the paint is applied may be different. I don't know, but I will say that that area has almost failed. The mirrors have almost failed. So even with this stuff, right now it's the water sticking to it pretty heavily. Again, the sides, you know, from about here down are sheeting pretty bad. Now from here up, there's still a lot of hydrophobics going on. The roof looks great, the hood looks great, the trunk looks great, but where there is a lot of dirt, even if I try to use, you know, the 2 bucket method and try very, very gingerly wipe off the dirt, it's just because the dust resistance on this particular stuff here is so poor. It's hard to get that dust off even by just spraying it. You will have to manually agitate that dirt off. There's been many times in the last 6 months, 7 months that I have missed a spot. So you really have to get every square inch of this thing and do manual agitation on it. So that's likely why it's failed. The wax has failed because of the dirt getting on it and having to manually agitate it. That's why the mirrors have almost completely failed and the lower third of the vehicle has almost failed. Now, is that a bad thing? That's up to you to decide. But I did put 2 coats of this on over top of the Flex Wax from the get-go. Excuse me, from over top of the liquid wax from the get-go, because I knew after watching Scott H's videos that the liquid wax is just a gimmick. It's not any good. This is where most of the longevity is coming from. Now, if you do watch Scott H's videos, I do recommend that you do that, because he has some really, really good videos out there of him doing the panels and everything. And some people will say that putting a hood outside and letting it sit in the sun is not a real world test. But from my experience, at least from the state in which this vehicle sits, which is in the garage, and the fact that I'm washing it about as frequently as Scott H is, once a month or so, I'm seeing the failure of this wax at about the same time as Scott H is seeing the failure of this wax. Now, where does that put this among the other graphene products? I would say squarely in the middle. It's not horrible, it's not great. The one complaint I have is the dust resistance. It's just not good at dust resistance. The paint is no longer slick feeling. This microfiber towel, you used to be able to just set it on there and it would fall right off. No, I can set it pretty much on the very end of this car before it actually slides off. It's not as smooth as it was from the beginning, and that's okay. That's to be expected. But the real question is whether or not this is any better than some of the other stuff that maybe costs more, that maybe is a little harder to apply. And I would say probably, and the only reason why I have to think about that is because there is another alternative, and it's the Turtle Wax Seal and Shine. If you don't know what Turtle Wax Seal and Shine is, it's basically this, but it's like a detailer. It goes on and comes off like a detailer. It's so easy to use. I use it on the motorcycle and it's been really good. So this stuff is a little bit harder to use. I pretty much don't even try to buff this off with a dry rag. They recommend if you cannot get this off easily, to take a damp microfiber cloth and wipe it off and then buff it with a dry microfiber. I pretty much do that. On the two vehicles that I've used this on so far, that's what I've done. I have sprayed this on, wiped it around like a wax, and just let it sit, because they say to wait about 5 or so minutes, and then let it sit out of the elements and don't wash it for 24 hours if possible. So I don't know if that really matters, but what I do know is it's just easier to spray this on and take a damp microfiber later and come back over it, wipe it off. And even when you do that, you're still gonna have streaks. And that's okay. It will come off after the first wash. Maybe, 99% of the streakiness will come off first wash. Second wash, you'll get it all. It'll be good to go. But this is maybe a once a year wax. Maybe. If your car sits out in the sun, if your car is outside all the time, if you wash it a lot, all of those things are going to shorten the lifespan of this significantly. And I don't know if it's any better than anything else in that regard. I think some of the other graphene stuff, some of the other ceramic stuff even, the Atoms of the world, the G-Technics, some of those other ones like that, are gonna be better. You need to look at Scott H's videos to decide for yourself if the application process is worth it. I would say it likely is, because you're gonna get more out of it than with this. I spent an entire weekend getting this thing prepped and ready to go to put this on it, and I'm a little disappointed, frankly, in how long it's lasted. I didn't expect the world, because it is $30 for this bottle. It's not $80, it's not $90. You get a whole ton of it in here. So they know that you're gonna be reusing this, right? If they thought that this stuff was gonna last you 3-4 years, you're not gonna, because they would have made the bottle this big like they do with the other ceramic and graphene coatings. They expect you to put that on one time. You're gonna spend $80. They're gonna give you this tiny little bottle, and that's gonna be the end of that. And you're not gonna need to do it for a while. This stuff, on the other hand, no. They expect you to probably spray this on after every wash, frankly. And the one good thing about this stuff, I will say, other than its average performance, is that you can put it on anything. You put it on wheels, plastic, glass. I put it on glass, no problem. Rubber, you put it on pretty much anything. I put it on the wheels, I put it on the cowl between the windshield and the hood. It's still beating up water, no problem. So this stuff is good for that. You put it on anything you want. There's no restrictions there. You don't need a different product for it. And it works pretty well on those items too. It does add a little bit of gloss as well. I've noticed that I have a truck sitting right here, has an ARB bumper with black powder coated steel, and it does fade if you're not on top of it. This stuff did add a little bit of gloss back to it. It's really hard to get a powder coated bumper to look good after it's faded. This stuff did help quite a bit. Still not perfect, but it's okay. So at the end of the day, for me, I would say this is, and I don't have any actual tests, so you're gonna have to go to, like I said, Scott H. That's the dude you want to go to. He's basically doing a scientific test of any kind of detailing product that you can think of. And he's going to be your best resource, especially if you're concerned about longevity. I would say that this is maybe mildly better than Seal and Shine. As far as the user experience of this stuff, I would say that it is far worse than Seal and Shine. So to me, if I were to start all over again and pick either this, which is the same size bottle, or a bottle of Seal and Shine, which I believe is in the low $20 range, and this is in the low $30 range, I'd go with Seal and Shine, simply because it's so easy to use that reapplying it every 3 months would be a no-brainer. It would basically work like a detailer for me, and that's okay. So those are my thoughts on it. Again, it still looks great, but the fact that this car is really not out in the elements that much, and this stuff is starting to fail on the lower thirds of the vehicle and the mirrors especially, where any kind of manual agitation and dirt does typically accumulate after about 6 washes, it's failed. I'm gonna say probably look for something else, because there's a lot of marketing that goes into this, and that's probably about it, to be honest. So save your dollars. I think when I need to do this vehicle again, very torn on whether or not I'm going to continue to use this, or maybe go to a Adams coating of some sort, or a C quartz or a Geon or something like that, because those are pushing into professional level coatings, but they're still consumer coatings. And so far what I've seen from several of those is that they last a lot longer. The hydrophobics last a lot longer, and those are critical things when it comes to longevity and knowing whether or not this is doing its job. So, this is a black car. I did have it parked outside 2 days ago, and a bird pooped on the roof, and it sat in the sun. It was about 80 degrees, and it did etch into the clear coat, unfortunately. There's a small etching, and I have had black vehicles. I know that that's something that you just cannot get away from. This was no different with this being on it. The roof still, hydrophobics are perfectly fine. So I know it's still there, but I took a very damp rag and I gingerly wiped up the excrement of said bird, and used detailer and did my best to try to buff that spot out. It's not coming out, it's etched in. It's just the unfortunate nature of having a black vehicle. It's the unfortunate nature of dealing with flying birds, flying mammals, whatever. What can you do? It's the bane of any car owner's existence is bird poop. And, it's just something that it comes with the territory of living on this earth. So this stuff didn't, it did nothing as far as protecting the paint or the clear coat from that. So, they they do say that it has chemical resistance, heat dissipation, increased UV protection. All of that is just marketing nonsense. This is just a standard wax. The chemical consistency of this has like 0.01% graphene mixed into it. I don't think that's going to make one bit of a difference in the grand scheme of things with this. Scott H, again, he sprayed all kind of stuff on to a clear piece of plastic and used a UV meter, and nothing stopped the UV, including this stuff. A lot of the other products were the same way. So if you're talking about keeping your headlights clear, especially, I know I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent now, but if you're talking about keeping your headlights clear, your best bet for that is a film, an actual plastic film, because that stuff actually protects against UV. So Laminex is a good one. I have seen and I've used Laminex. I've had it on a vehicle that sits outside relatively frequently. 3 years ago I applied it. Headlights still look brand new, but the area where it didn't quite get to, you can tell how yellow it is. I mean, you can just tell right around the very edge of that headlight where the film stops, it's faded again. Once you get that first coating knocked off that came from the factory by polishing it or sanding it, you have to put a film on it. You can't just wax it, and that spray clear stuff is just not going to cut it either. Anyway, I know that's a bit off on a tangent, but this says UV protection. No. So if it was me and this car was not this car, I would probably use Seal and Shine. I use Seal and Shine on my motorcycle. I'm very happy with its performance, its ease of use. I pretty much do a once a year regimen on that. The motorcycle obviously does not get driven around as much as the vehicles do. But it is way easier to use than this stuff, so that's why it gets a vote from me. This stuff I would not recommend. If you're on the fence about this versus some of the $80 coatings where you get way less volume of liquid inside, get the better stuff. If you want just a wax that lasts a little while, get Seal and Shine. Especially for the value that you're gonna get, it's way better. So that is my that's my tangent, I guess, and my thoughts about this with this. And you know, I'm not blown away. It's about average, and it's been about that way with most of the other coatings that Scott H has tested. This is right in the middle of the pack. So you be the judge, but for me, I was expecting more longevity out of this. Pretty disappointed. Chemical resistance is not great. So yeah, oh, real quick, let me show you that spot that's on the roof real quick here. I know this is probably going to be really difficult to do, but so, oh, where is it? Where is it? Ah, here it is. I see it. So let me see if I can get, it's probably easier to see here. See it right there? Right, wait, here. So you can see where that bird poop is. Right there. Just settled right into this channel here. But that's definitely etched in. That is not coming out, more than likely. It definitely feels kind of rough right there. It could probably be polished out, but the wax that I put on here, even though the roof still feels pretty slick compared to some of the other surfaces, didn't help at all. So again, you be the judge, but I'm gonna say no to Turtle Wax Flex Wax. That's my experience. You know, it's just not great. So if I were you, I'd buy this. This is way better, way easier to use. It's cheaper, and it's practically the same product. The only difference being it's way easier to use. That is the biggest thing. And look, it even has an improved formula. So why wouldn't you use it? This, no, this, yes. I will probably be testing, ooh, it's not in the tripod anymore. I will probably be testing some better stuff soon. I will probably do a quick buff, another quick one pass light soft pad polish on this winter, and then I will go to a professional level or consumer professional level, prosumer I think is the word they use, coating on this thing, and it will be based off of Scott H's observations. So I do recommend that you go check that out. Again, there's been some argument about whether or not sticking a hood on the side of a shop and letting it just sit there is equivalent to a real world test. In my opinion, if your car's garage kept, yes. Not only that, but it throws in the factor of sun weathering. Now, if you drive your car every single day, it may be a little different, but to me, the test results are lining up with what I'm seeing on this vehicle. There are just some inconsistencies between the roof and what actually sees dirt and sees manual agitation and more abrasion on it. And I think his hoods sitting on the side of the shop and getting dust on them, getting the sun on them, it's the same as a real world test. Unless you're taking your vehicles through, down dirt roads and down muddy roads all the time, that might be an exception. But let me tell you, you don't want an expensive coating on a car like that. You want this stuff because I guarantee you nothing is going to work on a muddy car. It's going to come right off every time. So yeah, this is probably my last video. Again, I'll see if I can cut in some stuff where I'm washing the car the 5th or 6th time. I can't remember. I think it's the 6th. If it's not, you'll see. There's some serious degradation in the coating. It's definitely starting to fail. And at that point, I was like, I've seen everything I need to see. So thank you if you've sat through this entire thing. Thank you for sitting through this. I'm not good at doing all this YouTube stuff, but I figured I would at least, there's not many videos on this. There's a couple of paid sponsor dudes. There's a couple of unpaid sponsor dudes who just focus on all kinds of stuff like Scott H. And then there's me. So, and a couple of other guys. And I think that, mine has been kind of, it's definitely amateur, but, yeah, I'm just going to end the video before I go off anymore. Just for clarification, this is the 5th wash of this car. So every time I say 6, just ignore that. This is the 5th wash. All right, see y'all.